everyone, I'm Miranda and welcome to September's Comfort Book Club discussion of Goodbye Mr. Chips by James Hilton. As always for the Comfort Book Club, I'm joined by my mum Donna.
Hello everyone.
And we've been really looking forward to today's conversation.
We have. I read this a long time ago the first time, and so it's so nice to sort of come back to it much later on and really think about what it means to me.
Yes, and we've created a special tea today. You'll be able to find the recipe for the cake on my blog because of course we couldn't resist baking a walnut cake with pink icing.
I must say you've done an absolutely fabulous job.
Oh, well, shall we try a little bit?
Go on.
Let's see how it turned out. I love the addition of walnuts, actually. That's lovely.
Oh.
If I say so myself.
It's also the most perfect pink, darling.
Oh, thank you. I tried to sort of match the book a little bit. Because of course it's inspired by the book, Mr. Chips always serving a walnut cake with pink icing.
Yes.
And we just thought, that sounds delectable. We have to do it ourselves.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll put a link in the video description box if you want to get the recipe and try baking the cake yourself. But let's get on with the discussion. First of all, thank you so much to those of you who sent in a voice message. It was so lovely hearing from you. This is such a favourite read of mine. I find that there's so much that's comforting about the book, even though it does dive into sad topics as well.
Yes, it has a little bittersweet, but in the end I feel it's essentially such a lovely, comforting work.
And you're right, it has that slightly bittersweet quality to it, which suits autumn very well.
It does.
And being set almost entirely in this school, I thought it was the perfect read for September.
It was a very good choice.
But one of our readers, Cristina, sent in a message which I found very entertaining because she reflected on how the book was still relevant to today as well, some of its messages. It was first published in the 1930s, but I loved the way she thought about how it was still applicable to our world. So let's hear Christina's message.
Good afternoon, Miranda, Donna, and all the members of the Comfort Book Club. You always make us find wonderful hidden treasures, and Goodbye Mr. Chips is an absolute real gem. Among many other things, this novel could be, nowadays, 5 things. First, a leadership management course. Second, a method for dealing with adversity. Third, a present for somebody who has lost a beloved young person. For through Katherine Bridges, we learn how a short life can help and can be light for many others. Fourth, it could also be a very advisable book for those recruiters who reject candidates because of their age, as the novel demonstrates that a senior can be priceless for a company. And fifth, of course, this book should be read by all the teachers in the world. Prestige and love for your students are 2 concepts that you don't study when you are studying teaching degree. But without them, you will never be a good teacher. Thank you for this opportunity, Miranda and Donna, and goodbye, Mr. Chips.
Oh, thank you, Cristina.
Thank you, Cristina. That was really sweet.
Yes, yeah, really lovely message. And yes, I think one of the things I really took away from reading the book the first time I read it, and it was an aspect of the story that I found sad but also very comforting, was the impact that Kathy makes on Chips's life.
Absolutely. And even the way that her memory is still by the boys that come from Poplar to play the soccer match.
Yes.
Is still there, and you know how touching that is to him.
Yes. But I think it just shows how even small lives have the ability to leave this wonderful lasting impact.
Yes.
And she really changes his character for the better, or perhaps a better way of putting it is that she brings out the really positive aspects
Absolutely.
of his character.
And even her loss fine hones his character to become even more, they say it, he has honor, he has respect, but it's only after her death that he becomes lovable. It's like the pain that he's gone through makes him more relaxed in his discipline. He's actually
Yes,
a
I think he's
warmer
become more
character.
lovable once he marries
Yes,
her too.
absolutely.
His humour comes out
It
more.
shines, doesn't
yes,
it?
he's
Yes.
more confident in himself too,
Yeah.
and he's able to discipline the boys in a way that shows he's more confident. He can be more discerning about when to, give them a bit of leeway and when not to.
Especially with Catherine's urging.
Yes, exactly.
Yes,
And so I found that such a special part of the book, their relationship, the story of that. And of course the sadness when she dies and his son dies. But how that doesn't embitter him.
No.
It in fact creates an even finer character, and that's where you feel that her life, although very short-lived, gave him so much, and gave not only him so much, but all of the boys that he taught so much.
Yes,
because
absolutely.
it made him a finer man and finer teacher.
Yes, it was wonderful. I think the way that her legacy goes on through his work.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I often think of The Fortnight in September as well when I read this book, because I think that Goodbye Mr. Chips is another story about ordinary human beings, but how precious those ordinary lives are and how special.
Yes.
And The Fortnight in September celebrates the ordinary life. And I think that Goodbye Mr. Chips really does that too.
Definitely. Like, the boys aren't from the best families, the highest sort of the land at all. They're just, it said they're sort of like very much sort of further down. They're not the Harrow boys or anything like that. And also you feel like with the schoolmasters, they're also of an average but very sort of hard-working. It's a lovely feel to it that you get.
And Mr. Chips is quite an ordinary man.
Yes,
in the
he
way,
is. He is.
In the end,
I think,
but he becomes so beloved.
He does, and it's not necessarily through the quality of his teaching. What's quite clear is he isn't the best classicist, or he's not even up with the current teaching methods or anything. He's just a wonderful man.
Yes, exactly. And Laura sent a message where she touches on this a little bit. She says lots of interesting things, but one of the things that she also said was, yes, Mr. Chips does no kind of heroic deeds, big heroic deeds, and yet he is still a hero, in the eyes of so many. So let's hear Laura's message now.
Hello Miranda, hello Donna, this is Laura from Italy. There are very meaningful messages in Goodbye Mr. Chips, and they deeply resonated with me, maybe because I am a teacher myself. Mr. Chips embodies the idea that a teacher teaches his students, but he also learns from them, and very often he receives even more than he gives. Just before dying, he says that he has thousands of children, all his students, and he remembers their names and their faces. I really needed my box of tissues reading this last part. In my opinion, the essence of the book is in the words Mr. Chips tells his students in chapter 15. You cannot judge the importance of things by the noise they make. They could perfectly apply to his story. No great heroic deeds, but a life lived with honesty, respect, humility, and kindness.
Thank you, Laura.
Oh, thank you, Laura.
And yes, I so agree. I mean, I needed to buy tissues at the end
definitely.
as well.
Me too, definitely.
But this is really a book about remembrance, I think, too. That's such an important theme within the book. Memory and honouring those whom you remember have been an important part of your life. And One other reader sent in a message about how the book prompted her to reflect on her own life, and it brought back some memories as well. So let's hear Monica's message now.
Hello, Miranda, Donna, and Comfort Book Club readers. My name is Monica McCauley, and I'm from the U.S., specifically Southern California. There's nothing like a book that takes you full circle in life, and Goodbye, Mr. Chips did that exactly for me. I enjoyed the Christopher Plummer version read on YouTube. As a 15-year-old, I sat in the audience at our local theater and watched the 1969 version with Peter O'Toole and Petulia Clark. As a teenager, I never realized that my life down the road would mimic that of Mr. Chips. I spent over 20 years as a teacher before I retired 7 years ago. I too, as James Hilton expressed in this book, have those, and I quote, tangled recollections of old times. Just like Mr. Chips, I look back fondly at those years of teaching. And also just like Mr. Chips and his feelings of sometimes being overcome, he lamented about waves of humor and sadness. Teaching is truly a calling, and a difficult profession at that. But this book validates all the triumphs of teaching and the lives that teachers touch. I couldn't help after completing the book wanting to stand and just say 3 cheers for Mr. Chips. Thanks so much, and make it a great day.
Thank you, Monica.
Thank you, Monica.
It's lovely that reading the book brought back memories for you.
Yes.
And yes, like I said, I think that remembrance is such an important theme within the novel. I mean, it's a series of recollections.
It is.
Of an old man's life, essentially. But when we were talking about this earlier, we were also discussing how important storytelling is in the book too.
Absolutely.
Because for someone to truly be remembered beyond an individual's or a generation or even a few generations' lives, that's where the power of story comes in.
Absolutely. I think at one point he says, oh, there's no one to remember Kathy now. The boys have gone, the masters have gone, but, of course we all will remember Kathy.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And Mr. Chips.
Absolutely.
Of course, too.
Yeah.
And I think it's the power of naming as well.
Absolutely.
Really comes into this story. I mean, the tragedy of World War One is always within the background of the book right from the beginning, and it comes to the forefront towards the end of the book as well. All those lives lost, all those young men, those young schoolboys lost. And this theme of the book that goes through of Mr. Chips remembering all the call-out names, and you get the list of names. He repeats them and remembers their faces. But it's also, I think, it shows the importance of naming in order to honour both the living and the dead.
Absolutely. The way that they read out, I think after Call Out on Sundays, the names of the boys who've been lost in the First World War. It's very moving that, as you move through, and the sheer numbers of the boys' names is quite...
Yeah, I mean, it really brings it home. And I think this is where this is such a remarkable book. There's a buoyancy to it. It's really, I think, such a hopeful book in many ways. It's also such a slim book. It's almost like
so
a long
much
short.
In this very
it's really
slim
almost
book.
like a long short story.
It is.
But it packs such a punch.
It does.
And I think the level of writing that can do that can hold so much sadness, but also so much hope and love in a story like that.
It has to be exquisite writing.
Yes.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's just so beautifully done.
It is really beautifully written. Education is, of course, another huge theme in the book.
Thing.
You had some interesting points
on
this.
I thought it was less about, at one point I think one of the headmasters complains that his boys didn't actually
learn much Latin or pass the exams.
And of course, in the world of Mr. Chips, it's like, what point is it to do this, to examine students to have these like marks where you pass or fail.
Yes.
It's obviously for him, he wants to encourage the boys, give them morals, give them values. And that's what I feel his greatest gift as a teacher is. He shares with the boys, he's loving to them, you know, in a way that he shares his life and his jokes, which are often, he even has a sort of schoolboy sense of humour for them, you
That's
know.
true.
Yeah,
I love how much humour is used in
Yes.
the book. I mean, we were saying together just the other day, I think we were talking about some kind of memoir, and we said, oh, what's different is from the past is a lot of the memoirs we like the James Herriot, for instance, things like that. There's so much humour written into them.
Absolutely.
And I don't feel that's so present today, or the humour's changed.
It has changed in sort of modern memoirs.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
they're often quite, you know,
yes, they're often not very light-hearted.
yes.
Even though you might think the topic would be quite light-hearted, or
Yeah.
it could be written in a humorous way, but it often isn't. And I think it was refreshing, actually, for me to read a book that has a very quiet, gentle humour.
Yes.
But I enjoyed it.
Yes.
I enjoyed the lightness of that came into the story. And yes, I think there's this sense from Mr. Chips of what he considers one of the most important parts of education is imparting good values, and in giving boys a real sense of identity too, a sense of place in the world, and of belonging, and being cared for and loved.
Yeah, I felt that very strongly, and I thought it was also so interesting that Kathy was in fact a governess who was out of a job when he met her in the Lake District. And obviously, it's said she was much more intelligent than he was. Had a very fine mind.
Yes.
And believed that women should get to go to university.
Yes, and should have the vote.
vote.
And I love how she broadens his outlook.
Yes.
Again, it's an example of how she makes him a finer man, and he lets go of some of his own prejudices.
Yes.
Once he knows her, and his mind becomes broadened by her, and that stays with him. And I think that's very special, even though he doesn't change completely. And in fact, I think in many ways he's meant to embody an England that has gone, you know, by the end of World War I.
I think at one point the words come up that, he's so pre-war, like as in, pre-World War I.
Victorian. He is a Victorian gentleman.
And she sees that. She sees that his values and his beliefs came from his time at Cambridge in the 70s and the 80s. And as part of this, she feels they're a bit stuck, but a lot of it she really values. She loves his gentle, simple way.
Yes.
And that sort of pride in England. And she had that too. He says that.
Yes, it's true.
Yeah.
But it's a wonderful example of a marriage that kind of...
almost opposites attract a little bit. I mean, they're not opposite, but a little bit.
But
unlikely.
also they sort of make each other better.
They do.
Yeah.
They do. That's a lovely way of thinking of it.
And I think that's, why it's such a touching story between them as well. This is also a book about old age and what it means to grow old. And I think what's wonderful is how Mr. Chips is given so much respect in his old age.
Absolutely.
And I mean, that's sadly often not true at all.
No, not now.
But he really is honoured by
is.
his students, remembered by them.
Absolutely. He loves the summer, especially because the old boys keep coming back and come and visit him and have tea with him.
Yeah, with the walnut cake and
with
pink icing.
But I love that hospitality in him too, this desire to share, and I love that. He's so convivial a host, you can feel that, and yet when he's had enough he can move them on.
Yes, I love that too.
I think that was so well done. But it is true about this too. I think that you feel that the sort of whole feeling about him is with old age, like he goes back to, he's not reading so much Virgil anymore. He's
likes
his
detective stories
and Sherlock Holmes, and you know, and I really feel with him. And I'm not 80 yet, but not quite. But you know, it's very well done. That
it is. I think it's also a lesson in learning not to judge others or have preconceived ideas about other people. A lot of his later students think he's just this fussy old bachelor, someone who was never married, and they have no idea of his past, and in fact that he had this great love, incredible wife, had a son, but then also this tragedy that came into his life, and so few people are aware of that. I think what was interesting for me, and I don't know if your perspective, having read it when you were much younger and then reading it now, if it's altered a bit. From my perspective, what I loved about the book too was it showed how much more life there is after 50.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, I think that's something that's lovely. He's only in his late 40s.
Yes.
Or he's already, I should say, in his late 40s when he meets Kathy.
Yes.
And in some ways, you know, when you're reading it younger, you might have the idea of, oh, he'd be totally set in his ways then. Like, there's no way his life would change after 48.
Yeah.
But of course that isn't true, and I think this book really shows that as well. That
it does.
There's so much more life ahead of you.
Absolutely.
You can change at any age too, and become enriched, and then have this even more enriching life.
Yes, and he does a vital service to the school when he goes back.
Yes,
you know,
during the war.
Yes, and helps and becomes in effect headmaster, though he won't take the title.
Yes.
Yes. And I think, I think when I read it when I was young, obviously, I think I must have been about 15 when I read this first. I felt, oh, yes, you know, at the end, he seemed in some ways very old. Of course, especially, you know, as he's getting the way he spoke about, oh no, I'm actually in good health. But, you know, he obviously was suffering from his chest and things like this. But you also realize what a rich life he had and how the time, you know, the time that he lived by wasn't Greenwich Mean Time is what they say. It was Brookfield time. So his time in many ways was sort of slower, but also more rich because he went from his life, you know?
I mean, you might think, oh, what a small life or a small world, living only within the confines of a school, you know, and his world really was this single school. But also his world was so much more than that, and I think that's what this really shows too. I almost wondered if James Hilton had a teacher in mind when he wrote
Apparently he did.
Did he?
Both his father was a schoolmaster, like a headmaster, I think. And I think he went to Leys School in, I don't know how you say that, but it's Leys, near Cambridge, which again would be Fen country, wouldn't it?
Yes.
So I think, you know, it was a headmaster there that he used as well as his father.
Interesting.
So I thought that was lovely.
Yes.
Absolutely lovely.
It does feel like it's a tribute.
It does. Even the way the cloak is so like tatty.
And easily caricatured. Mimic. But I think even though maybe he did have a particular teacher or teachers in mind, what I also think though is that this speaks to anyone who has ever had an important teacher in their lives.
Absolutely.
You know, I think that's always someone you remember, someone from childhood like that, like a teacher or librarian or whoever who helped you when you were young. That is someone that always stays in your mind.
Absolutely. And I think as an adult, we should be aware of that when we're dealing with young people or children, that you can make a real difference without even realizing that perhaps you are. It's a lovely thought anyway, isn't it? You hope.
Well, yes, and that you can make a real difference even just by being kind and sharing a joke.
Making a lovely cake.
Yes, exactly. It doesn't take any huge heroic acts,
No.
although he is heroic
Yes.
during the war at the
Yes.
school.
Yes.
He keeps the whole school going.
Yeah.
But it doesn't take any really big grand gestures often. It's just these small acts of kindness that can make such a difference. And I think that's what this book is really about too.
Yes, I do too. It's appropriate. It's a small book in terms of size.
Yeah.
I think that really works here. It's huge in terms of the sort of stories within it. But I think the fact that it's so compact has to say something too.
Yes, I think that's very true. And it's wonderful to have introduced some people to the book through the Comfort Book Club. Marie sent a message about how she couldn't believe she hadn't read it before, really, because she'd seen the film, but was really glad to have read it for the first time. So let's end with Marie's message.
Hello, Miranda, Donna and Comfort Book Club members. This is Marie from Yorkshire. Goodbye, Mr. Chips is a charming story written with a lightness of touch that leaves much to the reader's imagination. The story of how a slightly crusty schoolmaster, who is rather set in his ways, changes when he falls in love with and then marries Katherine Bridges, whose appearance in the book is all too short, just as her life is cut short through childbirth. I found the book quite delightful and now wonder why it has taken me so long to read it, even though I have seen the film version many times. It was thanks to the book club that I discovered it.
Oh, thank you, Marie.
Yes, thank you, Marie.
I'm so glad you have now read it and enjoyed it. We actually just watched the 2002 film version last night, didn't we?
Which we hadn't seen before.
No,
so
we
that
hadn't.
was new.
And we enjoyed it. They flesh out the story a lot more, as you can imagine. They have to add.
Don't you? I mean, it would be hard to film that without doing a lot of backstory.
Yes.
I thought they did it really well.
I thought they did it really well too. I would recommend watching it if it's a version you haven't watched.
Yes.
Because we enjoyed it.
We did. Yeah.
But yes, thank you so much to everyone who sent in a voice message to add to our discussion. And thank you to everyone who read along with us. Do let us know what you thought of the book. And of course, remember next month's Comfort Book Club choice is Marple, 12 new stories, 12 great writers, 1 Agatha Christie. Can't wait to read this together. I read this last year, but I'm looking forward to returning to it. Oh, and I also thought I'd just show you the gorgeous American edition.
Yeah, she liked
of
it
the
so
book.
much. She had to get the American one
I did,
too.
because I mean, well, you know, when you compare them. I like the roses, what can I say? So yeah, this was a collection of short stories all inspired by Miss Marple, but each of the stories is written by a different contemporary writer, and I'm really looking forward to chatting about that. Also, don't forget to get the recipe for the walnut cake with pink icing if you'd like from my blog, and stay tuned because I actually have an extra video going up on Tuesday. I'm sharing a vlog on Tuesday this week. So come back to my YouTube channel for that if you fancy an extra dose. But thanks so much for all the well wishes too. Fortunately, I'm feeling a lot better now. Extra big thanks to all of you who pressed the super thanks button. Always so appreciate your support, but appreciate everyone who supports my channel by subscribing and watching and commenting and liking the videos. So thanks so much to all of you. I hope you've had a wonderful weekend. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.